Okay, hello and welcome to our first introduction to type video. In this one, we're going to be going over point type and area type. And where do we find these? We find them in the tools panel over here under the big T for type tool. Um, Under the type tool, we have type tool, which is for point type, area type, type on a path, which goes along a path, vertical type, which goes down, vertical area type, vertical type on a path, and the touch type tool. Um, so like I said, in our first video here, we're going to be going over point type and area type, the top two. And we're also going to be talking a little bit about placing text files. So this is a text file here that I have placed in this document. This is actually imported as it's a PDF import. If I click on it, it's not going to tell you that. It says that it's a group. It's got some stuff going on here. Let's see if I can get down into it. Clip group, type. So then finally down in here we get into type, but it's these weird little chunks. So sometimes when you import PDFs into Illustrator, it doesn't really work out as far as converting the type. It's better if you wanted to use a PDF to go into your PDF reader and just select the text in there and then copy it and then bring it over and paste it. But you can bring type in here. This one happens to be an information about lorem ipsum, and I have this one for you guys to download. The text that pops up when you use one of these tools, it says lorem ipsum there, and that is a whole long paragraphs of words. It's made to look like a normal distribution of letters as opposed to using content here, so it looks real. It just has a nice flow to it, and people tend to use it as a filler until they've put in their actual text. So it's useful to have around so that you can have fillers before you're ready to put in your words. Maybe you're doing a layout for a client and you don't actually have their content yet, so you can just do the little blank layouts for them with this text. I'm going to delete this PDF out of here. I'm just selecting it and hitting the delete key. Then I'm going to go to File, Place, and I'm going to choose lorem ipsum text and lorem ipsum doc. I can bring in two items at a time if I want. I'm going to hold on the Shift key and get them both. And I'm going to say show import options so you can see what it brings in. Spending all your time formatting a doc in Word and then bringing it in here is not going to be really great. You will lose some of the formatting, or it might end up looking weird. So it is probably better to format it after the fact in Illustrator. We'll be learning more about formatting text next week. So for now, just keep that in the back of your head. I'm going to say place. And you can see here that it says text import options. This is for the text that I'm going to be bringing in. And I'm just going to leave it as is. Again, you don't have to have these selected. I'm just wanting to show them to you. So we're going to leave them as they are here. Say OK. And then it's going to ask me for my Microsoft Word options. And I'm going to not check any of those because I don't have them in there, and say OK. And then just like with photos, I have these here. I have two options. I can just click it once and it will drop it as big as it is. Or I can click and drag and give it a different shape. All right, and it will wrap when I do that. So that's good to do. You can see the shape that I made for this was not big enough for the text, and so I put a little red box down here. That means there is more text to be shown than what I have. In this case, I could just drag my box bigger until the little red goes away, and it's off to the side there. In general, if you bring in text like this, you might just want to pull it off into your scratch space and grab little pieces of it as needed. So I can drag these over to the side, and if I want to have a certain chunk of it, I could highlight it and do a control copy, control C, command C, and then do a paste over here to bring it in, that kind of thing. All right. But let's talk about point type first. With point type, we have two types of point type, two kinds of point type. When you click here with your type tool and click, boom, that's point type. The way that you can tell that something is point type is that when you select it, if you try to make it bigger, it is actually going to make the font go larger as well. You can see I'm up to 68 point here. Versus with area type, these things came in as area type. So when I adjusted them, the text wrapped. It didn't change in size. It wrapped with the object. Okay. When you're just looking at these off the top of your head, there's a little blue or solid, depending on what color you have for your layer, because your layers can be different colors, right? So if I change this to pink and said OK, now I'd have a little pink ball there instead. But the solid one means that it is area type, versus on this one here you'll see it's hollow, and that means that it is point type. So point type is just, I'm trying to get this moved over back over. Sorry. Let's see here. Get out of my way. There we go. Point type is just straight across the board, and if I keep typing here, oops, with my hand, it's not getting in there. I can, and it's just going to go on and on and on and on. Unless I hit the return enter key, then it will go to a second line and go on and on and on and on. But again, it's not area type. If I move out of this and I'll zoom out because I made it so big and adjust this, all it's going to do is shrink the font size down. It's not going to wrap it or anything like that. What else? Excuse me. When you are doing this, you need to be careful. If you have a box or something there, and you are on your type tool, it will actually convert over to an area type tool as it crosses over a box. So you can see here, I have a little arrow with a little box of dots around it and the little cursor inside of it for my cursor. When I drag over a path, it changes to a circle. That means, hey, if you click here, I'm going to put this text inside of the area of a box, and it's going to become area type. So if you want point type, you need to make sure you're not on something that could convert it to area type or type on a path. So sometimes, if you've already been designing on here, it would be easier to go to your scratch space and hit there to make your type first off. If you are using an older version of Illustrator, that lorem ipsum will not come up there. It will just be a blank box with a cursor in it, and you'll have to type in your own text. They just added this maybe in 2017, which is nice because you don't lose your cursor that way as easily, and you can have that as a placeholder. So like I said, if I had gone over here and gone to this box and clicked there, instead it would fill it in, and it would give you more of the lorem ipsum and make it area type for me. What did I miss? Oh, so then you also have vertical type, which is the same. It's just that it is vertical. So it goes down like this, straight down. And if I hit return on this, if I'm on the bottom and I hit return, it makes a second column to the left. And anything I types down there. And we'll keep going unless I hit return again. Okay. And then with area type, like I said, you can click on a path with the type tool. You could also do vertical area type. So this is vertical. You can tell my cursor on this is now horizontal as opposed to being vertical. And that means it's going to go sideways down. When I click there, anywhere on here, it actually puts area type in there because it hit this or hit the edge, but it's doing it backwards. So it goes here, starts down, left and down, so on the right and down, and moves to the left. So instead of being like English where we read left to right and down, this is down and then to the left. It's a little bit more like when you're typing Asian characters, any of those kind of Japanese, Chinese languages with the actual characters versus the Romanji versions of them. They tend to read that direction, and so perhaps that's what this is for. I'm not really sure. In general, this isn't very useful for reading English, so it's kind of more of a decoration. I always think of it as more like a matrix letters decoration because it is illegible for reading, but if you were trying to use a language where people do read from right to left instead of left to right, then perhaps this would be a more useful tool for you. What else do we have here? Let's see. You can also create area type with the type tool by dragging. So instead of just clicking once where I get that lorem ipsum, I can actually click and drag and make a box. And I can't see what size it is, but I could estimate the size and let go, and it will fill it with area type. So I can make area type that way. Um, if I use the area type tool, which is the second tool down here, then you can see that it has that circle for area type, but I can't click and draw. It says I must click on a non-compound, non-masking path to create text inside a path. I can't click and drag. Same thing happens. I need to have my shape already formed before I use this tool. And it can be any shape, any closed shape, so I can pick a star. And then I can use my area type tool, and I want to try to click up the top as close as possible, and then try to fill it in. You can see with the star, doesn't quite fill in equally. We'll go over um, some ways next week where you can uh, get the type closer to the edge. And I guess I could show you some of that now. So in this case, if you're trying to make it look like a star as opposed to just kind of a ragged shape, some of the things that I could do is I could delete this and use my star tool again, but hold down the shift key to keep it flat, and then hold down my alt option key to keep the arms flat, right? Make it a little bit bigger, bring it down here, and then click as high as I can up top and fill it in. Again, if you're going for looks rather than legibility, um, I can do things here like make sure that my paragraphs are taken away. There's another paragraph down here. So get rid of my paragraphs. You can see the little, it's hard for it to fill in those places. I could use some other tools that we'll learn about next week in the paragraphs panel for spreading out my text a little bit more. So there are ways that you can make it look more star-like. And again, kind of a little bit more information that I want to get into for this week. So we'll just leave it at that for now. You could also put place text right into one of these shapes. So let's see, let's do a polygon this time just for fun. And I could go up here and do File, Place, and pick my text again and say Place. Okay. And you can see that I get the little arrow cursor that has the dots on the edge and the 3 pieces of paper. This means that I can add on to a shape. And so all I have to do is come over here and find the shape and click on it, and it will fill it with my text. You can see that it puts it vertical, so even though my shape is at an angle, it is still putting it flat when it pastes it in. And what else? Hints to improve the look of area type. Oh, this chapter is having me go over the paragraph panel, so I'll do that. So again, improving area type, make it as flat as possible. We'll go back to the star for this. So I'm going to hold down the shift key and the alt option key to make it as flat as possible. I'm going to, select my area type tool and click up here near the top. So if I go to my window menu and go to type, I can open the character panel and the paragraph panel. So I'll open the character panel. I can make my type be smaller, so I can make it 10 point. That makes it fit in here a lot better. You'll notice that it gave me just a little chunk of type, and now that I've readjusted it, the type doesn't fit. It was just an example to fill the area, so I need my own type, which is again why I brought in these extra ones over here, because I can actually come in here and do a select all, which is a Command or Control A, Command or Control C for copy. Come over here, select all, and hit paste, and now I've got more text to work with there. It is 12 points, so I'm going to take it down to 10 point again. I'm going to zoom in so you can see a little bit. I'm going to get rid of these returns again, and it filled in pretty well here. The top, again, if I wanted to go up here, I'd have to maybe hit some returns so that it would fill in up top there, kind of break my letters up. I can also come to my paragraph panel and say justify with last line centered, And you see that fills it in a lot better to have it justified. This looks like a line where I don't have a return, so I'm going to pull that up. This got spaced out too much, so I might want to see if I can get some more words up there somehow. Is that? No. Maybe put some spaces in them again if you're just doing it for filler. Trying to break up some of these words so they'll fit better. What else does it say? Oh, giving your text a background color. I thought this was for next week. I actually skipped this in class, but I'll have to go over that. So if you want this to have a background color, you can select the object with your direct selection tool and click on one of the anchor points until you get blank here. You can see now that it's reading the color off of the back of this. I'm going to do this again. When I just select this, it gets black here. That's because the font is black. If I go to my properties panel and pick a different color, it will change the color of the font. So I go to my direct selection tool and hit this little corner point, and now this goes blank because it's selected on the shape instead of on my words. And I can actually come back over here and give it a fill color of whatever I like. And I can even add a stroke if I wanted to the edge. You'll see that my text is coming right up to the stroke, so that makes it a little bit hard to read. But there are ways to adjust that as well. And you can go up to, is it objects? No, type, area type options. Where are we? Oh, it's not selected, so I have to go back now to my regular selection tool, select this object. Oh, sorry, I did it twice. Type, area type options, and I can actually do an inset spacing. Why is this not working? Oh, preview. There we go. That pushes it away from the edge so I can read everything that's going on in there. You can actually do columns and stuff in here too, so you could have multiple columns and multiple rows of text if you wanted to have other dividers in there. All right, so that's a nice way to get everything kind of pushed away from the edges. Say okay. What's next? Again, if there's a plus down here, it means there's more text is available. So if I wanted my text to show here, I could take this object and try to make it larger. It is area type, so it should adapt to that. And if I keep going and keep going, eventually I should be able to fit all of the lorem ipsum in there. It seems like a lot of work to get that done here, but it is technically possible. Yep, there's a lot of text there. See if I can back some of this up. Oh, I got it all. Now it's all gone. So the red is gone, and I can actually make this a little bit smaller too. There it goes. So that is as big as it is to fill all the lorem ipsum text in there. All right. If I take this and select the whole thing, say select all, copy, and come up here and just click with my regular type tool and say paste, it's going to paste it flat. So you'll see here, and actually looks kind of awkward because I didn't hit all the returns, but this is actually point type now. And so it's stretched all the way out. I'm going minus, 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 so you guys can see how far it's stretched out as point type. It still had a couple returns in it, so it gave it a couple lines, but just be aware of that. If you take area type and just paste it regular, it is going to just go out into point type instead. Oops, I'm making this too tiny. Now I have to squish it all up to make it be visible. So I'm just going to delete that, and I'm going to hit my hand twice to bring this back over. You can convert point type to area type and area type to point type. I'm just going to select all this and get rid of it. We will use my text tool here, and we'll drag out for some area type. And you'll see here with that solid little colored ball that I was talking about, when I hold over it, it has arrow and with a T and then a little dot and a line underneath it, which is the symbol for point type. So if I click like that, double click, it converts it to point type. And now it has a little hollow circle, right? And if I stretch it, it actually makes the text bigger. So this has become point type. I can take point type then and double click on that. Let's move this over so you can see it. It is a arrow with a T inside of a box to show that it's area type, and you double click on that and it will convert back to area type. And if I move it around, it should wrap. Unfortunately, once you have um, put it to point type and then taken it back, it counts all those as returns, so it's not really wrapping really well at this point. You can kind of bunch it up and it will wrap eventually, but it's a little bit awkward. So it's not something you want to do a lot, to be switching it back and forth like that. It's not a good way to change your font size or anything. You'd want to use your properties panel or your character panel to do that. But it is possible, if you make a mistake, to quickly switch over to the other one. Okay. And I think that that is all for this video. I think I covered all of the basics of area type and point type. In the next video, we're going to be looking at type on a path and the touch type tool. So I will see you in that next video.